Hopefully the sound level is okay, since I kind of rearranged my setup. The proximity of things might be a little different than it was before, so let me know if anything in the sound is messed up or whatever. And hopefully, we don't lose the stream. Good morning. I'm gonna start out with some thumbnails. I have an idea for a painting I'm kind of kicking around, which is really based on the sketch I did a while back. This one here. But I kind of want to make the big cat a dragon. I know you guys probably can't see that all that well, but yeah, I thought it'd be, a fun painting. Not like breaking the mold or anything on concept. Just warrior girl throwing some magic. And she'll have a dragon sidekick, because, girls and dragons. So, I thought it would be a good way to just warm up in terms of just doing some thumbs. There's one, I did that sketch vertically. I might want to change it to a horizontal. And then after the thumbnails, I'll get into toning a pencil sketch. So yeah, just gonna hit a couple different mediums here. Good morning. Good to see you too. Glad you guys could join. Funny thing with, even if you're doing, something that's relatively simple, and I say simple in the sense that it's just going to be really two figures, right? With no real environment, unless, I might hint at something. But then, just like composition kind of becomes everything. You have less and less, like the more you pare down the image, the less you can get away with, mistakes. Right? The less forgiving viewers are. So, something like this, where it is just going to be two figures, on top of the composition needing to feel great, the action will need to feel great. And everything, the anatomy will need to be, pretty spot on. A lot of times I can get away with not really using much reference. I say that loosely because I'm kind of always analyzing anatomy. So though I don't use it directly in images often, I'm at least I at least brush up on it enough. But for something like this, I might actually have to shoot some reference to make sure I really nail it. We'll see. Can everyone hear me okay? I think it looks like the sound levels are probably fine. But just chime in if it's not, or if it's out of whack in some way. Cool. Yeah, so I don't know, I like the idea of this being a horizontal, because if I do decide to make that cat into a dragon, and I wouldn't do like some crazy giant, where the entire background is just the head of the dragon, though I say that and that would be kind of cool. So who knows, maybe I will go for something larger, but I was kind of thinking of something a little smaller, like a horse-sized dragon. This pen is super fun. This is originally a Pilot Elabo. I got it because doing a bunch of research, it was kind of the only one that seemed like it had any flex to it. And it did. It had some. But then I discovered John Matishaw's work on nibs.com. And he will customize nibs. It's not cheap. Right, the pen originally, it runs around $120 for this pen. Upside is it will last you a lifetime, so money well spent. And then the customization on the nib will be like $160 or something like that. Basically, it's about a $300 pen when all's said and done. But he'll grind the nib down so that it has a crazy amount of flex to it. And it's awesome. Yeah. I love this pen. Yeah, it's fantastic. And again, like I said, it's not cheap. It's like $300 at the end of the day. But it's like nothing else. It is so much fun to draw with, to write with. Yeah, it'll last you a lifetime. I got the Spencerian customization, which I would not recommend if you're not an advanced pen user, because with that extreme amount of flex comes a certain amount of delicacy. Right? Is that the right word? Maybe. Anyway, and you could spring that nib, and that would suck if you push too hard and you spring the nib. So if you're not a somewhat advanced pen user, I would recommend sticking to a normal steel nib, which of course I don't have sitting around, but I see one. Give me 2 seconds. So this is just a normal, steel nib. You can pull this out, replace it with something else. This is just a G nib, right? But what I did, and I started doing it after using this one, all of a sudden the G nib felt too stiff. So what I did, using just a normal Arkansas stone, sharp, like a sharpening stone for knives, I just ground down the top of it just a little bit. Takes like 2 minutes. Just grinding it down, and it actually made it so it can get finer lines now, and it has a little more flex to it than it used to. So if you're not used to using these kinds of nibs, I would recommend going this route for a while until you get used to how far you can push it without springing the nib, right? Which is when it just bends and breaks on you, basically. And then you don't have to worry about your, $160 nib, which if you spring that, you might cry a little bit. I would. Anyway, so that's that. I love this pen. It's like, it very quickly became my go-to for thumbnails and stuff, and I don't know why. I almost never thumbnail in pencil anymore. I used to do a lot of that because I wanted to sort of really figure things out, but now I really enjoy just thumbing in pen. Also, what I did is using just a crafting syringe, right? So it's just a syringe with a blunt needle. I take an old ink cartridge, an old Pilot ink cartridge, because I don't like the converters. They don't usually hold as much ink. So I'll just fill the old cartridges with my own ink. And this is a Diamine Ancient Copper, which absolutely love this color. I almost went sepia, but I like the heat that this one has. Sepia goes a little too green. Sometimes I really like it, but I feel like sepia overall is a little too green for me. This is just hinting at some of the anatomy. I tend to base my dragon's anatomy heavily on big cats. I love big cats. They're just awesome. I love little cats too. So, the point of filling it with my own ink is that I can then take a brush pen, which I filled with the same ink, and I can then just get different kinds of marks very quickly, easily. It's super portable, which is always awesome. And for thumbs, I always feel like being able to get, the larger shapes are, like, it's kind of important, because that'll really dictate the composition, right? I do have a cat. I have my little studio gremlin. She's just a little black and white tuxedo, a rescue that I pulled off the streets like almost 6 years ago, I guess. She was about 5 weeks old when I got her, so she was very tiny. So just compositionally, what I should have done, because what I will do at times is then use some water and push this stuff around, and it's crazy the saturation that comes out when I do that. But let's do it. Let's grab some water. 2 more seconds. Alright. Let's put our water down here. I don't know, I like to just kind of mix some things up. Right. And it's a way to kind of give myself a little bit more control over some kind of quick values. Without worrying too much about little details right now. Because this is fountain pen ink, right? So yeah, she usually goes a little nuts at some point. Because this is fountain pen ink, so it's super water soluble, which, you know, sucks if you don't want it to be, or if you accidentally get water on it, but you can definitely use it to your advantage. Can always just come back in to reinforce some shapes and accents. But I'm not going to spend a ton of time. This is just a thumbnail, and this really should just be an initial idea. And it's always good to get a few of them out. Here. I'm going to bear with me for a minute. Zoom in on this a little. A little bigger there. Because I do like that idea of that dragon head being kind of massive also. And I think maybe, this is actually a little too widescreen. So my intention is that this would be on a 16 by 20 inch panel, linen panel. Always good to be aware of how large that figure would end up being on the panel. And this is that's bigger than I want, I think. So I feel like I would actually want her I think something more like that. And I kind of feel, well, next time. But yeah, I do kind of like the idea of this big dragon. That would be kind of dope. You know, get the eye of the dragon right near her head. Compositionally would be fun. Of course, then you have to also consider the larger it is, the more kind of detailed you would probably need to go. Maybe, you know, doesn't have to be. If it's moving really fast, you could kind of, you know, maybe get away with simplifying a little more. The only reason I bring it up is because I'm like, do I really want to paint all those scales? If that's the kind of dragon it is. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a more like leathery skinned something. But that would be kind of cool. I don't hate that. So how's everybody's Monday? I hope you're all doing really well and had a good weekend. I'm still in the process of kind of rearranging my place, but it's coming along very nicely, and that makes me happy. I finally cleared up some space to paint more easily. That was not an easel pun, but it should have been. Yeah, what was annoying is that if I did a painting setup, it would kind of get in the way of just moving around my apartment. So I couldn't like leave it up for too long without it becoming a huge pain in the ass. But now I can actually leave it up, and so it I think will make it much easier to just get some more painting done. Because the nice thing is, if you can leave your painting setup up, it's like you don't have to do the whole like tear down and set up every single time you want to paint, especially if you're like, oh, I've got 45 minutes to kill, like I can work on this little portion of the painting or whatever. But then if you have to set up everything, then now you only have like a half hour left or whatever. So I think it's really nice to be able to just, do your setup and leave it up. I'm just going to put the heavy darks on her right now to kick that monstrous dragon back. Later today I will be sending out for some test prints, so hopefully those will turn out awesome, and then I'll get some prints available for people online. Some nice ones, like they're going to be on museum quality paper, like some photo rag paper, most likely. That's kind of the one I'm leaning toward. What's cool is that the way the black ink sits on the particular paper I'm looking at, it actually almost looks like India ink. So I think it'd be really fun to get some some of the ink drawings printed on that, and they'll actually almost look like originals, which I think will be really cool. I hope. We'll see. Sarah, where in NorCal are you? I'm from Sebastopol originally. Good old little apple and wine country. Always beautiful up there. So I don't want to get like crazy with the heavier marks on the dragon, but yeah, a little bit is fine. Red Bluff, crazy. I used to go hunting with my dad out there when I was a kid. Go like quail hunting. And man, that place gets hot in the summer. It's beautiful up there, though. It has that kind of rugged, almost like halfway desert in the summer, but it's just like, I don't know, it's really beautiful. It's a very different kind of countryside up there. Yeah, I mean, I'm in Southern California, and I know that occasionally up in the Red Bluff area, you guys will surpass us for temperatures, which is crazy considering how far north it is. But yeah, can get gnarly. I'm just working in my moleskin, by the way. It's just a moleskin. I think it's the A4 size, so it's sort of 8.5 by 11, but not quite. It's a little different. But it's the Art Plus sketchbook, so it's got the heavy paper. So that's the nice thing, is it'll take some moisture pretty well. If you go crazy, yeah, it'll warp and ripple, but you can always press it afterward, and it'll flatten out pretty well. It's oops, other way. Did I just... There we go. The camera setup gets a little finicky sometimes. I think it's partly I should have set the camera up on my other tripod, because the one it's currently on is kind of a lighter weight deal. My other one is like this crazy heavyweight tripod. So, next time. I don't hate that idea. Alright, do... I also kind of don't mind the original vertical. Difference is then the because she was chilling with a big cat before, which generally kind of takes up less space, so I can get more of it in there. But things change when I make that creature bigger. So I'm just thinking, make her, pushing her back a little bit, kind of in the composition. I'm not worrying too much about like her exact pose, because actually in the original drawing I did, I really like the tension and the action that she has, so I will definitely pretty much just riff right off of that when I go into anything that's more final. But I just want generally kind of this space that she's gonna take up. She'd end up being pretty big on a 16 by 20 there. But I also kind of dig the idea of like a dragon that's like, the size of a large wolf or something like that. I think that's kind of cool. So it's not, it's not this like invincible force that, when you get something that size, it's like, well, fuck, nothing could stand a chance against that. Like, why is she even attacking? She can just kick back and chill and let her, again, attack mountain do the work for her. How is the book going? The book is coming along. I think I need to check in with the publisher on that one to kind of a good portion of it is sort of in their court right now, so I still have some aspects that I need to wrap up. I'll be working on a bit of that later today as well. Well, now my dragon got horse size again. That's okay. Because one of the things I was thinking is, what if we don't give him a crazy long neck? So yeah, as far as I know, the book is coming along pretty well. I'm just really hoping that we can get it ready for a May Kickstarter. That's what I would really like, because I will be at the Lightbox Expo in September, and I would really, really love to have some books ready for that. But once you launch the Kickstarter, and then hopefully it gets funded, and then, you know, it takes time to print and ship and all that stuff. So we'll see. We will see. Doing our best. But then you don't want to, like, totally rush it, right? And potentially not have as good of a product as you could have. So hopefully we can get it all done. I do like the vertical idea. You know, the only reason I was considering, and still am, considering the horizontal, is because I always work in vertical. You know, because I work in advertising and I help design movie posters. So everything we do, pretty much, with the occasional billboard, which is crazy horizontal, right? Like 14 by 48. So that's just like insane widescreen. But otherwise, everything's pretty much just like one sheet format. So your movie poster, right? 27 by 40 or whatever. Basically 30 by 40. So I was like, you know what? I should do some horizontals. I used to always think in horizontal. But that was before I was doing, you know, key art for 11 years. What are you gonna do? Yeah, actually, someone is helping me with the Kickstarter. I am working with the art order to put the book together. And, you know, they do the Infected by Art books. And I think John just started a quarterly with Infected by Art. And John Shindahedi is awesome. He's a great guy, super nice. I've known him for some years now. He used to be a creative director over at Wizards of the Coast. So, you know, and he was there for years doing Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So he has a lot of, you know, really great experience, and he's very experienced with Kickstarter campaigns. So that is awesome. That was one of the things I was like, man, I don't have the time to do all of this myself. You know, I do work. Yeah, 4 days a week, but those 4 days, all my time goes to work, because, you know, I'll usually do a 10-hour day at work, and then weekends are for girlfriend, and then Mondays are kind of my day to do everything else. Yeah, so I was just like, man, like, putting a book together, especially a book this size, and then figuring out the ins and outs of a Kickstarter campaign, because I've never done one before. And I was like, is a 250-page book really the place that I want to sort of figure that out? Not so much. I'm just doing that because I wanted to bring a bit of it up. Just to start to kick around ideas for, value and where I can kind of make things pop or let things sort of sit further back, right? Obviously, we want this area to pop, and then I'd like the silhouette of the dragon to kind of jump out at us a little bit. So. All right. Feel like there's some good stuff there. Yeah, she has a great kind of, more of the animation style going on, which is always really fun. Yeah. Super cute stuff. Yeah, in a good way. I mean that, like, because she wants it to be that kind of that cuter, sort of broader appeal kind of illustration, and I think she does that well. All right. Well, I like these thumbnails. I'm not gonna jump into like the more fleshed out version yet. I'm gonna jump over to another pencil sketch, and we're gonna get into some toning on that stuff. And I'll put that up, but I just realized I'm not sure where my little bottle of solvent is. But let's get her up. I will zoom that out. Yes, Disney princess. We both love Disney. I mean, we were kind of at that perfect age where we grew up with it, and it was like one of our big art influences. Let me make sure she's in focus. Whoops. I'm not trying to record a video. Well, I am, but not on the camera. So I will be right back because I gotta find my little bottle of solvent. Otherwise, our tone is not going to be very interesting. found it. I will be right back. Okay. Yeah, I was born in 1980. So, yep, we're right there. Alright, so I did the initial lines on this one. It's not just lines, right? It's fairly tonal. I'm debating if I want to do... we'll see how much we can do with just the tone on it. It's always nice to get a little more painterly, right? If I do everything with the pencil, it becomes more of a drawing, but I would like to figure out that lighting a little more. Which doesn't need much. But if we do just say that it's a little more directional. Alright. So this is on Duralene, Duralene, acetate. It's made by Seth Cole. Because it's acetate, it's basically like a vellum or a tracing paper, right? So it's translucent, which allows me to work on the front and the back. So I can do the drawing on the front, do the tone on the back, and I don't have to worry about messing up my drawing. So big plus there. So just flip it around. Always a moment of truth. You hope nothing like jumps out at you as being totally wrong, because that's never fun. You know, and there are days that I'm just not seeing things right. So it'll look right, and then I'll flip the page over, and I'm like, wow, like so lopsided. But then I wonder, like, is it really, or am I just not seeing it right? Because if I correct it, like, am I just pushing it the other way? And yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Most days I don't have that issue. Some days I do. I am debating. What is this? Not dark umber. I think I might do a mix. Sometimes I'll do this. I'll use cool gray. Let's bring that guy a little closer. I'll use cool gray, and I might mix a brown into it as well, just to warm it up a little bit. And I like the look more than, say, using a warm gray. I don't actually like the color of the warm gray. Kind of bugs me. I don't know why. It has this slight, almost purpley quality to it, I guess, that I'm not a fan of. I mean, I like purple well enough. Purple's cool. Sorry, I just have bits under. But if I'm gonna warm it up, I prefer something that's, that goes more toward the red orange side. So this is just a dark brown. That's the color. I know, it's super descriptive, right? So it's a 90% cool gray, and then just a dark brown Prismacolor. And we're dropping pencils. Alright. And then we use our bit of Gamsol. I just took some Gamsol, put it in a little squeeze bottle. Gamsol is just a odorless, not totally odorless, but a natural mineral spirit. So use it as a solvent in oil painting. You just put a little bit on a shop towel, right? Blue shop towel. I like these because they're just really durable, so they last. And the mineral spirits then just basically melt the wax in the pencils and allow us to get this nice tone. And because we're on acetate, though this will work with tracing paper or vellum as well, which might be a little cheaper than Duraline. I prefer Duraline because it just has no tooth, and you can get crazy amounts of detail if you want. This one, so because of this, we can erase back out. This one I actually want a bit of texture in here. It's easy to get really smooth with this stuff, but the nice thing is that if you do put literally 1 or 2 drops more of solvent on here, just to give it a little bit of texture, almost a painterly kind of quality to it. It's just for a little bit of added interest. And you just want to let that dry a bit. If you don't, when you go to erase, it'll just erase out completely. See, like that. Which can be good if you have a crazy light source or whatever. It can be good to erase that out immediately. But you don't have to. You can use an electric eraser. The pink pearl will also get it back to white pretty close. Sarah, where did I learn this technique? This was actually, I pretty much learned it on the job. It's a pretty typical traditional advertising technique because it's quick. Because you can get tone and stuff, and this sort of full value without having to painstakingly paint stuff and build up value and all that. But traditionally it was because you can also do this with charcoal, although I believe they did use basically any kind of wax-based pencils, whether it's Prismacolor or Faber-Castell. I'll use Faber-Castell for more color, because I like their color options more than Prismacolor, and they're more archival in general. But I think traditionally they would do it on tracing paper or vellum, because the acetate is a newer thing and not a lot of people even make this stuff. I will be bummed if Seth Cole ever stops making this. I'm not sure what I'll do. It makes me nervous sometimes. I don't really like to have a technique that is too heavily based on a very specific product. Like I said, you could do this on vellum as well. So I would probably just switch over to vellum if Seth Cole ever was like, yeah, never mind, I'm not going to do this. So yeah, I pretty much learned this on the job, and then sort of adapted it a bit more to how I work. A lot of people are much more drawing heavy, line heavy, whereas I'll oscillate a bit between line and form on my stuff. I tend to get a little more painterly with it, I think, than a lot of people do, and that's just a personal preference. Nothing to do with whether it's better or not. It's just how I work, and just doing it more and more over time. I've noticed, if I look back at some of my old sketches, I can really see how much I've kind of changed the way that I work. So I have changed it over the years. So the idea on this image is that Dakota, who is an outlaw, just had a tussle with a bounty hunter that tried to bring her in. He lost. And we're seeing her reflection in his blood that's pooling on the floor, on the tile floor. So even though, we're seeing her right side up, technically, yeah. And I'll show you, and we'll flip the image around, and you'll see. So right now I'm just kind of getting some little bit of texture. Then I'll bring the pink pearl eraser in. and sort of really start to kind of determine some of these values. Right now it's kind of a general thing. The kneaded eraser is really good if you want to just do some like soft values. I think that's sort of what allows me to get a bit painterly with these things, is I'll use different erasers depending on how much they erase. Some of them erase a ton. Yeah, so it is, right? It's kind of this little bit of a mindfuck image, right? Where the first read is you see her. And in color, I think it would be also a little more clear because this would all be kind of red. You would get a little bit of her local color coming through that, but not a lot. But the first read would be her in red. And then second read, as you analyze the image, you'd be like, oh, wait, what? And you flip it around and realize that that there's a little more going on. You know, the funny thing is with movie posters, you don't get to get a whole lot of storytelling in there, because you're dealing with an image that, you know, has to have a very fast read on it, right? Because they're not just sitting in movie theaters where people can stand in front of them and analyze them. These things are in bus shelters, right? So people are driving by at 30 miles an hour and might see it for like a few seconds. And so you need something that reads quickly and clearly in that situation. And so we don't really get to get heavily into storytelling, which is too bad because I love storytelling. So, you know, I think that's why sometimes with my own stuff, even if it's just a little sketch, I try and you know, get a bit of that, and I like even the situations, I tend to go for something that's a little. It's rarely mid-action, even though I was literally just thumbnailing a mid-action shot. But I generally I like to get these sort of like these quieter sort of almost an everyday situation, or what would be an everyday situation for that character, right? Hopefully Dakota is not, you know, shooting people every day. And she's not. She has other interests. She's not trying to kill anybody. She's just trying not to get captured for something that was not entirely her fault. But I'm not going to give all that away. Alright, so let's bring in this pink pearl. And so this one, because it's a harder eraser, kind of will allow us to take more of the pigment out. Right? This is where we can start to kind of establish light sources a bit more. Right, the reflection of the whoops, didn't actually want okay. And we'll get into some little little details as well. Let's get a little bit of a flare happening on these. Just because that's fun. It's fun to get into lighting effects. I love lighting. I mean, honestly, at work, it doesn't matter. I can be sketching on a TV show that I care nothing about, but if I can get into lighting, man, I have so much fun with that stuff. Debating, because I want the tile to be lighter than the blood. Don't want this to be quite so high contrast. We can always hope the movie poster industry changes. And sometimes, honestly, it depends on the project, really. Some of them do go a lot more narrative, but that's usually the smaller, more artsy ones, because, the nature of those projects, they can kind of do whatever they want and get away with it. People don't have the same kinds of expectations as say, like posters for a Marvel film. So, it's a tricky one. I don't know. Maybe it'll change. I'm sure it will. It always does, right? And sometimes that's what it comes down to, is just each sort of generation wanting to try and do something different than what was being done before. So, it'll all come back around, I'm sure. We see a lot of illustration coming back, which is awesome. And, I remember a few years ago, anytime I would mention, Drew Struzan, people would be like, that stuff's too dated and blah, blah, blah. And now people are asking for it. So it changes. Things do come in and out of fashion, like with any industry. So, here's hoping. I'm gonna bring in my this is a little Tombow Mono Zero eraser. Great for just, little details and when you want to just start catching edges and highlights and all that kind of stuff. Nice thing with us essentially looking up at her with these light sources on the ceiling is we actually have a legitimate reason to rim light her now. The amount of times I end up using rim lighting just as a way to pop out a character without actually having a reason for it. It's the movie poster industry showing through right there. At a certain point, because you have to just really be concerned with how quickly things read, sometimes, we just have to cheat the hell out of stuff, and if you analyze it, it makes no sense. But we need it. We need that read, and we got to make it work. And so we were just like, cool, rim light. Like, I'm super guilty of that. And every time I think of my drawing teachers in school specifically telling us no rim lighting, because he also used to work in movie posters, and he was just like so tired of that just being the solve for everything. I always think of it every time I do it. It's like, damn it, I gotta think of a different way to pop that character out. But it's fine if I actually have a reason for it, then I'm all about it. I'm down with that. One thing I want to get into here as well. One, she's got these like tights on, so we want a little bit of kind of a translucent sort of vibe. But I also want to kind of catch the edges of this to start having it feel a bit more like liquid, right? So some of those effects and shapes are important to start really having it feel that way. So things will get distorted toward the edges. And because it's a more viscous liquid, so we're not going to be dealing with like crazy ripples, right? Like if it was a puddle of water, then it would react a little different. And let's get some highlights on the dude's gun. And some highlight on the tile. You don't want to like start putting highlights everywhere. One of the dangers, of course, always in art is getting too monotonous, too repetitive, right? So, and it's easy with something like this, especially when it's a medium where you can work quickly. You'll start falling into a rhythm, right? And you'll just kind of be like, do 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 do. Okay, highlight, 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 and then before you know it, you're like, oh shit, everything kind of looks the same, and you don't want to do that. So sometimes you just have to take a step back, analyze it, and see, like, is it all looking too regular, too monotonous? And if so, what should I change to fix that? I want to get... Sometimes with this little mono zero, can start to get a little too much texture, which, as with everything, can be awesome if that's what you're going for, right? And usually what I'll do at a certain point, I'll come back in with, whatever dark color I want and kind of reinforce some of these, the accent darks, the shadows. So one of the things I'm kind of balancing a bit here is, in reflections things do simplify, right? So the darks will tend to just kind of bleed together, right, and sort of mass together. You'll get this very simplified value grouping, and I kind of want to balance that with also having a decent amount of information, right? I don't want to overly simplify it, but I also don't want it to be this like super high fidelity image, because I still want it to somewhat read as a reflection. So just kind of, a little bit of back and forth goes a long way. Get a little bit. She does have like a black dress on, so I'm not going crazy with the highlights on that. Let's nice thing with the kneaded eraser, is just the way that, because it doesn't pick up the pigment right away, you kind of have a lot of control. You can sort of, as you scrub back and forth with it, you see it getting lighter, and you can kind of just say, okay, done. Like, that's enough. And let's break out a bit of our Faber-Castells. So like I said, I'll use these when I get into color, right? They just have a much nicer color range, I think, than Prismacolor does, right? This is a set of 60, and to get these same colors in the Prismas, like I had to get a 120 color set. This is like their 72 color set. Most of the colors, I'd say half of them, I knew I was never going to use. Whereas these just have such a nice range that like I'll use a ton of them. Not in this particular image, because this is going to be very simplified. Sorry, just trying to move some stuff out of the way here so I can set these guys down. I will probably, once I scan this in, like, I'll go a little digital with it at some point. What color do I want? It's always tough to, so I don't want to go too hectic. No, that's way too pink. Alright. Alright. Then we'll do, let's see. I don't hate that. It's better than that one. Alright, let's stick with this. And I'm gonna go light on this. I don't wanna, because it's gonna go over like pretty much everything, right? But it's just to give us that little bit of color, to kind of tell us a little more like what it is we're looking at. Get a bit of color separation, right? So I might even throw a little hint of color on the tile floor too, just for a little further separation. Yeah, I think though when they get into like the crazy like neon colors and stuff, I'm like, no, I'm never gonna use those. But also, you know, I picked up that 120 set because like they're so cheap on Amazon at the time. I think I picked up their 72 or I forget which one, 72 or 48 colors set, and it was like $20. It's like, what the hell? Okay, cool. So, And I think that 120 color set was man, I don't remember how much that was, but it wasn't much. Like, for what it was, which is why I got it. Like, awesome. I'm gonna do this, like, cool tile. I mean, this is probably barely even gonna show up. This is such a light color. One of the big differences I've found between Faber-Castells and Prismacolor. Prisma, I think, has a higher pigment content, which is really nice. It can be. But I've grown to really like the lower pigment content of the Faber-Castell. Feel like you just have more control that way to kind of build it up if you want to, or just do a really subtle, like this. What I'm doing right now isn't even about the color. It's almost more just pushing the temperature around a little bit, just enough to separate, right? So I'm not like trying to get all full color with this. I just want a bit of that separation. There's something here that is bugging me. The nice thing is, if you do like really mess up on something, and like you can always just bring your solvent in, your mineral spirits, and you could just wipe this whole thing if you wanted to, right? Without having to like redo the drawing, which is really nice. I don't need to do that, but just saying, as an option. Like, you're never totally screwed unless you mess up the drawing itself, right? And then maybe you're a little screwed. And I can't help you. Sorry. I think let's bring a little bit of just a little color to the lights. Not much, just a subtle kind of, again, I'm thinking of this almost more as temperature shifts, but yeah. I didn't even know Hobby Lobby was still around. Yo, the Jaybird. Again, just to kind of to create a little bit of separation. Where's our crazy blue? Since a little bit of color would definitely show through. I mean, you know, I'm not an expert on what reflections in blood might look like, but I feel like some color would come through. Pretty sure. Damn it, I needed that one still. Now, even though I know I said you wouldn't get crazy ripples, I think playing up a bit of that liquid is a good thing. This, I think, it was like a camera cleaning kit or something, and this came with it. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do with this? And then the other day, I was like, I know exactly what I can do with this. I can, instead of having to, like, spit all over my drawing, I can use this. And it works great. So, awesome. It was like one of those camera packages where you get the camera and then they send you a whole bunch of other shit that you probably aren't going to use aside from the extra memory card. So, cool. Just want to darken her glove here a bit. I want that to pop a little more. All right. Let's her back. And so what I'll do here is just reinforce some of the shapes, right? Now that we're back on the front, I'll mostly those shadow shapes, because I think some of them are just a little hectic now that we've put some tone in the back. So some of it will involve, this is where like a white pencil can come in handy to start to pull out some little details. And it doesn't take much, it's just enough to kind of nudge things around a little bit. Right. But to do white, you need the surface to be pretty clear of anything else. This little spot has been bugging me. there's certain angles with the nose where it's like you gotta get it just right or it just looks wrong. And this one has been bugging me. But I am kind of really wanting to, I think, unify these shadow shapes a little more. So that's where what I will often use to do that is a 70% gray. It just has a nice way of sort of blending the shapes together without getting really busy. I think partly because it's a really soft pencil. You know, the different grays, like some of them are harder than others. Like black is harder than the grays are. The consistency of it. And when you get the soft pencils, they just blend nicely. So it allows me to start to unify these shadow shapes a bit more, which hopefully will let it read a little more like a reflection, right? One of the things I want to do I think some of the details were just getting a little too much. Let's play up that flare a little bit. It's hard because it's like I want to detail her out, but then, you know, you don't want to sabotage your own concept just because you want to play with details. There are plenty of other images to do where we can do that. And then last, man, I don't know if I want to do, all right. So normally I would start really kind of defining some of the shadows and stuff. You know, in terms of a cast shadow and form shadow. But I don't really want to do that in the reflection. So I think all I will do is I will just address the edges of this, of the pool of blood. Maybe we can hit a few of those highlights with our white pencil. The craziest medium, I'm not sure, like, I feel like that probably depends more on the application of the medium, I think. You know, I haven't, like, tried drawing in blood or anything like that. I'm not a fine artist. But, you know, there have been times where I thought, oh, maybe I can get this oil painting done for a job. And so that can get crazy just in terms of the tight timelines that we work with in advertising. Like, oils are not at all conducive to that. So that was maybe a little crazy on my part to even try it. But it was fun. So I don't know that I would say I've like tried like crazy mediums necessarily. So I'm not quite sure what those would be. I feel like we had assignments in school where they would, you know, be like, oh, make a sculpture out of straws, plastic straws. And it's like, dude, that's just a stupid assignment. I mean, it's fine for the people that either don't know what they want to do or that's what they like to do. They're just those experimental whatever artists, and that's cool. But it's like, I want to illustrate. I'm not going to illustrate with straws, so stop it. Just don't. But I had to do it. We all did. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna bring a little bit of color on the top. Right, because every time you put it on and then you flip it back over, it kind of mutes the color a bit, which is really nice. I love that look, and it gives it this sort of like antique-y kind of look, which I totally dig. But there are times that you want a little more punched up color. Not much. I'm not going to do that everywhere. Keep feeling like I'm going to sneeze. Don't sneeze, don't sneeze. Alright. So, yeah. So what I was talking about... Yeah, coffee has a great look. But you can also get inks now that kind of have the same color and give you the sort of same effect, and then you don't have to waste delicious coffee. So, right, if we were really looking at this as a reflection, this is how we would see it, right? As a puddle on the floor, dude's hand laying there, his gun, her foot coming into frame up at the top. But I really like the idea of flipping that around and really having the first read be her and the second read being the environment. But it really, I don't know, it could be presented both ways, which is kind of fun. And at some point, fairly soon, maybe even later today, in which case maybe I'll stream it later today. I'm going to scan this in and do some stuff in Photoshop, because I have a look for these images that I want, and it's really kind of a mixed media sort of deal. And then I can really nitpick the hell out of what's going on in that nose area. And I know it's something simple. It always is. And I'm like, damn it. That's why it wasn't looking right. But anyway. Yeah. I think we're gonna call this done for now. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll take off and take off for a haircut in a little bit, but yeah, hit me up with any questions if you have them. Yes. Any questions about the technique or art in general or career stuff? Not that I have a whole lot of career answers. Mine has been all over the place, so it is what it is. Someone was trying to call me. Okay, well, shit. Cool. Looks like my haircut appointment got pushed a little bit. That's fine. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that's that. It's a tricky one. It's not like the best thing I've done, but it's fun. It's fun to kind of figure these things out a bit. But I have a feeling with this one, I'm going to do a lot of tweaking digitally. When I start, it's not going to be fully painted. It's still going to be mostly black and white. I'm going for this kind of noir vibe with these images. I'm definitely going to do some oil paint streaming as well. It's a nice thing with my new setup. I have the room and the space for that. So when I do get into painting, this piece that I was thumbnailing earlier for anyone that missed it, when I do get into this piece, I am gonna stream it for sure. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Yeah, man, flipping it like that it's so versatile and it's so forgiving, which is my favorite part. And of course, because I do this for work as well, I would say 60% of my work is this type of stuff. Even for like movie posters and things, but it's like we need it to be forgiving because we have to be able to make changes, right? And I don't want to do everything digital. Like, that's just depressing to me. This stuff is what makes me really happy. I feel like digital it's all about just getting to the end result, which is cool. For illustration and stuff, it is kind of about the end result, but traditional mediums allow us to really get into the process as well, which I think adds to the visual interest of the image, and I think that's really important. And so, but having something that is forgiving, that's versatile, that is quick for commercial work is so important, because you have to be able to change stuff when clients ask for it. What I do for work is I help concept movie posters, movie and TV posters, essentially, entertainment advertising. So, I work with art directors. I'll sketch concepts that they don't have photos for, since most posters are built out of photography. But if we have concepts, there's no photography for it, then we'll sketch them out, and then later they might end up doing a photo shoot based around the sketches that we do. So that's where I come in for the most part. And then we'll also do some actual illustration for posters as well. But for the most part, we are, sketching out concepts, essentially using this kind of a technique. I think I cleared out all my old ones. Nah. I don't know where they are right now. Well, I do, but they're all packed away. I was gonna see if I could show you some others. Oh, I do have some others. Look at that. That I'm sure anyone on Instagram has seen. Let's move her out of the way here. Right, we got this one done the same way. This will probably be the cover for the book. Pretty sure. Some variation of this. So that'll be fun. It's just a girls and dragons kind of day, isn't it? Yeah, so it gets. I do love me some dragons. It lends itself so well to like playing with light. I think that's one of the reasons that I took to this technique so much. No, I have not seen Adobe Sensei demo. I don't even know what it is. A good website for royalty-free photos. I don't know, honestly. I never really use photos in that capacity. For what I do, we have access through the film studios to all their photography, so we don't really have to worry about. I mean, obviously Shutterstock and those kinds of things come into play, but those are not royalty free. Like, ad agencies pay top dollar for that stuff. So, I don't know. This technique has a very broad range that you can play with, which is, I think, really fun. I enjoy that aspect a lot. There's an old one. More girls and big cats. It's funny because some of these I remember being tighter than they are. When I look back at them, I was like, oh, I actually went kind of loose on most of it. Her face obviously is pretty detailed, but then the rest goes pretty loose. That sort of painting mentality there, dialing in the focal point, and then going looser. So here's one where I kept it more in the kind of browns to give it that sort of that tone. It's a fun kind of Red Sonja piece. I mean, whatever. Red Sonja's outfit is ridiculous, but it's really fun to draw. It's just like I think that's why if I do a serious piece of her, I actually tend to. You have to stick to some of it because it's just that's part of her outfit, and if you change it, then she's just some other redhead barbarian girl, which is fine too. But I think you have to keep some of her iconography. Though sometimes I will change things a bit and give her a little more armor. but whatever. She's fun. I like her. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Twitch is probably going nuts right now. They're like, you can't show nudity on here. Oh well. Whatever. It's just art, so no one freak out. But people do freak out. Anyway, so a little bit of old sketches there. Yeah, I think that's about it for the day. For now, we'll leave you with my favorite Little Mermaid drawing. Right? That's how I feel about Red Sonja. I mean, that's her whole deal, right? Is that she's such a badass. She just, like, she doesn't need armor. But believe me, people online don't accept that as a reason. What's funny is that I've always kind of approached things from a more, like, because I grew up doing a lot of martial arts and stuff, and there's always kind of like that ability to be able to move around and dodge attacks and maybe not get hit, because I would spar against people that were much bigger than me, because at the time I was like lanky as hell. I was probably 6 foot, maybe I was 6'1" by then, and I was only like 130 pounds, 135 pounds. So, yeah, maybe 150 by then. But I would spar against people that were like literally 100 pounds bigger than me. I can't take a hit from someone like that. So it was more about just dancing around and tiring them out. So that's where I'm like, dude, even if you're like a badass warrior, there's nothing wrong with that. Lighten the load, use a weapon that's quick, you know? That's why I tend to give my warrior girls like either a spear or a really like a thin kind of a rapier type sword or something, or bow and arrow. Just something that can be either a ranged attack or allow them to move very quickly, and so they won't get hit. So, yeah. What are you gonna do? Anyway, on that note, ignore stupid comments. And I will let you guys know. I may do a exactly agility 100. May do another stream if I decide to jump into some digital painting today. I don't know. There's a lot on the plate that has to get done, so we'll see. We'll see where it all goes. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. You can always go back and watch it if you missed the first